Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this session where we will talk about crossover innovation and design, interplays, perspectives, and momentums. And my name is Daniel Byström, and I have the great honor to host this session. And together with me, I have a great panel that I hope will be able to ask all these complex questions that we have. So first of all, we have Ulrika Forsgren Högman. You're the head of innovation and development at Malmö Stad. We have Ola Jakobsson, who works with cultural and creative industries and international affairs at Region Skåne, at the cultural department at Region Skåne. And then we have, there you are, Johanna Tysk, system-oriented and transdisciplinary designer at Coke. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to say, but yeah, I do my best. And then we have Jenny Nordberg. You're industrial designer, and you're also the founder of Spook, that we can maybe talk a little bit more about later. And then we have the great honor to have Magnus Göransson. You are a designer, and you're also the former design director of Lego Creative Play Lab. And then, not at least, we have Dorte Bo Boyesen, who is the CEO of Form Design Center. So when we talk about crossover innovation and design and this thematic that we have today, what is it about? Well, I think it is about how we can talk more about the preconditions for innovation and design to take place, and how we encourage more interdisciplinary collaboration in between not only the design professions, but also many other disciplines. How we move from talking together and do more action together. I think that would be something we'll talk about today. We can talk about what has become better, what are we good at, what challenges are there, and what do we need to do more of. So one of the thematics of this first, and this is actually the first Southern Sweden Design Days, which is great, and the thematic today is, and for this year, this first year, is 1 + 1 = 3. And I think it would be, first of all, it would be quite interesting to hear about why do we have this Southern Sweden Design Days, and what about this thought about the thematic? Dorte, would you like to explain that for us?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Southern Sweden Design Day is actually a development of a former project called Southern Sweden Creatives, where the region financed by the EU addressed the creative cultural businesses in order to see what impact do these businesses have on the Swedish BNP. And when that had been finalized and concluded that it was very successful, at Form Design Center we decided that we could not leave all the relation, all the knowledge that was built behind. So we decided to develop a new platform with a bottom-up perspective. We have developed a framework for performers and practitioners to fill this Southern Sweden Design Days with content addressing subject as design. And we are actually now ready to welcome and open this first edition of Southern Sweden Design Days. And the ambition is to develop a new annual event over time with the aim of highlighting and build knowledge about design, focusing on sustainability, collaboration, development in a cross-innovative perspective. And Southern Sweden Design Days aim to invite visitors from all over the world eventually to experience the best of the creative Southern Sweden design community. And the aim is to design, or to address design interest public as well as the professional visitors. And I think with Malmö as a central hub for creativity and sustainability and culture for 4 days, the Southern Sweden Design Days platform is showcasing a full range of design disciplines through seminars, workshops, exhibitions, as well as networking events. Concentrating, focusing on this theme, so as you addressed, Daniel, 1 + 1 is equal to 3. And I think that the theme can be seen as a symbol of synergy of alliances and development in order to reach improvement which matters, which really makes a difference. To solve existing and future challenges where we need to collaborate, we need to innovate, we also need to bring new acquisitions to the table, and the theme encourages to collaboration and to interdisciplinary interaction. And 1 + 1 equal to 3 is open to interpretation, of course. And we can be meeting discussion and work between material and techniques that forms new solutions. It can also be different expressions and styles combined in an innovative matter, or it can be encouraging different industries and disciplines to merge. It's all up to how we interpret and how we collaborate. And I think the aim of the theme is also to emphasize the region's openness and capacity, and not least to address how do we go ahead, how do we actually make new improvement, because we have a world that needs new development and new innovation. So, long answer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that kind of opening speech. I think we will move forward to a little bit like, more questions and a little bit dynamic session here. And I think what you're addressing, Dorothy, is really important. And first of all, when I stand here and listening to you, it is interesting to hear about the Southern Sweden Design Days, and maybe start a little bit with both of you from the city of Malmö and then Region Skåne, and hear from you. What do you think, maybe Ola first, about how important is it with such an event like Southern Sweden Design Days for cultural and creative industries to prosper, and both in short terms and more longer terms for this region?
I would say it's very important because it puts the Scanian design industry in a spotlight internationally, and it creates new relationships internationally to build on in long term. So also I hope that actually connecting to the theme, that the design industry in itself also can be more connected to other businesses and other lines of businesses in cross innovation environments more in the future, in perhaps more playful ways, and that Southern Sweden Design Days could be one of many arenas for such activities.
Thank you. Interesting, and I also think about Malmö. When I first heard about Malmö was becoming a kind of a city for design, that was about 10 years ago, and now during these 10 years I feel it has happened quite a lot within the design scene and so, and I know that you are new at your job, Ulrika, but you have a really interesting background, and you have been working with design from many different perspectives, both from the public side and from the private side and so on. And what do you have to say about this question about like the importance of Southern Sweden Design Days and this talk today?
I think it's really important. I think that design needs to be like a driving force for addressing social changes and for building a better society, like you talk about. And I think that creativity has been, flourishing purposes here in the region for a long time, and but we still have some challenges, like addressing the design as a real driving force for traditional industry, or for using it as a tool for change. And I think that we have the myllan, the soil for here, but we have a little bit more to. Nej, jag kan inte säga.
But can I ask you then? Because I've met you throughout the years, like for the past 15 years, after being a freshly baked designer and then coming out and being here as a designer in Malmö, the southern part of Sweden. And I have met so many representatives from the public sector throughout the years, and you are one of the few that actually understands design and actually understands the capacity of the design process. And why do you think that? I mean, I know that you have a brilliant mind, you're super intelligent, but that it's something else. So why is it? Why do you understand design as you do compared to a lot of other from the public sector?
I think it's really, like I said before, it's so important to have creativity in the processes of developing the society and to be really curious about an open-minded outcome. And I think the designers, unlike other professionals, has the creativity, they have the artistry, they have but also at the same time have the skills of looking at the whole picture and to see systematic eyes on things and the analysis to it. So and also listen to the context. And I think that's really strange that we in the public sector don't use designers like we use other consultants in the daily projects and the daily operations that we're working with. So yeah, I think it's really, I'm missing that.
But would you say that you being a curious person is the main key? Should we look for the curious people within the public sector in order to find collaborations?
Maybe curiosity, but also I think that really put creativity as a really main success key factor in developing things, because I usually think that we a little bit too used to address what we've done before, looking at the history, using that we know best, like we are safe when we're driving change. So yeah, curiosity, but also actually, I would say, address creativity as a key success factor. Yeah.
I think I will get back to you, but I will continue a little bit to cover the panel here, and I would like to invite Magnus to the conversation. You say something about, because of your background, you come a little bit from side, you have been away from Malmö, and you can see Malmö from maybe another perspective. And you talk about Malmö being a bubbling, playful city, and that playfulness has a important role to play when it comes to innovation. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's I grew up here. I moved away. I came back. I moved away. I came back. So I've been following this with this outside perspective, but also inside perspective, and being able to see the change that has happened over the last 21 years, I would say. It's so nice to see things like this happening. A community of designers coming together, seeing a lot of support systems coming into place, and just having this feeling of a change from being a very industrial. It's kind of interesting that we're here because this was what Malmö was 25 years ago. It was industry, and has become this playful, slightly rebellious city. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Southern Sweden Design Days is happening and why things are happening in Malmö, because there's some kind of rebelliousness underlying in the city as such. And that rebelliousness is something that you need in creativity. You need to be a rebel. You need to be able to challenge things as they are. And that's something that is in the air here and something that we can improve even more.
Mm-hmm. I think you had also a really interesting question and following question into that if they, maybe you can ask the question. Yeah.
I think the question was if the region and the municipality has realized this, that it is a playful city. Was that the question you were asking?
Yeah, that was the question.
Yeah, because playfulness is also one of the big drivers of innovation. It is when you are playful, you are also open. You're open to new ways of playing, if you would say. So
just imagine yourself being in a board meeting or being at a resort having a team building experience. That's the difference between play and the professionalism. So that in that play situation, it's so much more to be open and creative. So that's what I see when I come back to Malmö, is that playfulness is already happening, but maybe people haven't really realized it because they've been growing up with it.
Interesting. Ola, you had something on your mind, and maybe you could also follow up a little bit on what Magnus was talking about.
Yeah, it was kind of the same, in the same spirit. When Jenny said curiosity, I think that's perhaps the most important factor in cooperation, in successful cooperation, being curious about the other one and things that I don't know, and the playfulness as well, of course. And I think that we can improve within the public sector regarding those aspects. But and actually, we have been trying that lately in different projects, and I will not go too deep into that because I would take up all the time. But I think it's very important aspects: curiosity and playfulness.
Yeah. So yeah. Let's invite first, before you, Dorte, we will invite Johanna to the conversation. So all of us have had a chance to say something.
No, I was thinking also when we're speaking about creativity and play and curiosity, because I'm working in the public sector mostly with systems-oriented design, which is, well, systems transformation in response to complex challenges. Like, how do we organize as a city and as like both a city but civil society, as different actors in society, how do we organize to respond to the complex challenges that we're facing? And I think an important aspect of creativity when you speak about it in those terms is also that it's like you have to work with sort of the self. Like, curiosity can be tied to like an individual capacity, but it's also like there's structural conditions for those kinds of things as well. And to look at like, what are the rules that we've set up? What are the goals? How do we measure things? What are the policies that are set in place? And how do these enable or disable a culture of curiosity, creativity, play? So I think that's something that me and others who are sort of have a creative background and enter these environments, that is like we find ourselves in a position of having to understand the context. Like, that's 90% of our work, and then 10% is doing the actual creative work. So I think that's an important aspect also in these conversations, to sort of address and think of creativity from like those, in a way, like angles or those perspectives.
Dorte, did you have something that
Yeah,
you
it was
wanted to
just
say?
an add-on, because I think that curiosity is definitely a driving force in everything in life. But I also think what is important in this discussion and the challenge that we have is to dare to fail, which what I find as a Dane sometimes is very, very difficult in Sweden, because you want to be so proper all the time. And I think it's time now to open up, to dare to fail, because it's through our failures that we actually learn, we move forward, and we can really take very, very big steps in order to allow that. So it was just a comment, but I think it is a very important aspect of
It's a really
this.
important comment, absolutely. I would actually want to address a little bit what is going on. At the moment, we can see during these special times that I feel that is, I don't know if you agree, but it's more openness towards experimentation, towards prototyping. There is a lot of focus on especially we talk in Sweden about the national policy for design and architecture, and in Europe we talk about EU Green Deal, the new European Bauhaus, where design and architecture has significant roles, and pointed out to that. And at the same time, and of course we then address really important challenges in connection very much to sustainable development in different perspectives. At the same time, we sit here today, and what I think this is really great example of is that how we are a group of people from different perspectives, both designers with different perspectives and public officials working from another perspective. And in that, I would sometimes I'm thinking about where is design in the whole debate when it comes to the national design and architecture policy. I would like to ask you, Jenny, do you feel invited to national or regional or, you know, kind of work around this?
Well, it's said that we are invited, so I should feel invited, but I don't feel included at all as a designer. And if we're talking about the so-called gestaltad livsmiljö, I feel that it really addresses architects primarily. And why is that? I think it's a lack of understanding, again, a lack of understanding of what design actually is, because design can be so much. We've heard it today. It can be on a systemic level, it can be objects, it can be change of behaviors, it can be services, methods, and because often when the public sector invites creatives, they often invite architects and artists. And I think that's connected to architecture. It's often a building, you can understand it, or a city plan, some kind of, yeah. And with an artist, you can also understand it, it's art. Some might see it as strange, but it's still art and it's allowed to be strange. But then we have design, which is so broad, and it could be so many things. But if we talk about the design process, I think it's easier, because the design process is about going from something to something else, not knowing in the beginning how to go there, but we know that we will end up there, because that's the beauty of the design process. And I think if more people would understand this, then I think we would be included in a much greater way. Because what do we need now? We need change on so many levels. But no, I don't feel invited.
But this is really interesting, because also I will follow up on this a little bit, because and also all of you who are listening to this who are designers, that you also feel invited to these discussions. And for example, you were mentioning, Ola, before this conversation, that you, in collaboration with other organizations, are in the process of developing an education in this what we call about gestaltad livsmiljö. I want to explain. Gestaltad livsmiljö is the design and architecture policy for a national policy, and you are right now forming education for the municipalities in Skåne, and you had a question maybe to the designers here.
Yes, actually to everyone, what you would say that the public offices in regional and local level would need to learn during such a traineeship or education. So I was hoping to get some input there. However, I would just make one comment on this on the issue of being included or not. I think that this policy for architecture and design in Sweden is a cross-sectoral policy. It addresses the need of cross-sectoral cooperation, but and it's a complex societal challenge we address. But we are not organized complex. We are in silos with experts. So we have a little difficulty, I would say. It's not a defense, but perhaps an explanation. We have some difficulties in finding each other and actually get on the same page, basically. And that also reflects how we address the rest of you. I think that might be one of the explanations. So most of us understand the complexity, but the challenge of actually addressing it together cross-sectoral is hard.
So me as a designer, for example, I'm also a designer, I have actually had the chance, actually, or not only the chance, but I have been engaged in working with a national policy around gestaltad livsmiljö. And I know also you, Johanna, you have had that opportunity, but it's a little bit different in what area you work with and what perspectives you have. But what do you have to say about that? And then do you feel invited to this? And then how do you
mean
take
specifically the gestaltad livsmiljö?
Yeah, not only
or
the
like, if I feel, that's an interesting question, I think, because I mean, there is more and more of this need for design and like what design can offer in these types of situations. But I also have the feeling that the conditions are not quite rigged for us as designers to come in and properly do the work and like fully do what we are able to do in a way. And I think it's design needs to shift and change and adapt when it enters these new environments as well. So I think it's almost like a mutual evolution growth process for design and for its context. Yeah, that's how I see it in a way. And I see it going in a direction of sort of evolving to be more synchronized in that way, but I'm sure it's going to take a little bit of time.
Can I add just I often get the question when working towards municipalities or the public sector, like, we're here and we want to go there. How exactly will you solve it? That's such a, there we can't meet, because the design process is about understanding the situation, doing research, analyzing, learning stuff, and altering how we get to the goal. But I mean, you don't go, if you have a broken leg, you don't go to the doctor and say exactly how will you fix it. You just go there and trust the doctor that he or she will fix it, whatever method. And I think that needs to be applied on design as well. You need to trust the designers. We have long educations. We know these things. You have to trust us that we will solve things.
Magnus, do you have something to add?
I was thinking about what Ulla said, putting out the question on how we maybe can help. And at least my perception of this is that there are a lot of governmental help aids or initiatives out there. So many that it becomes really hard to see through. There are offices that you can get help from, there are organizations, there are development. I think there are over 50 only in Skåne. I think I heard that number. There's like 50 institutions that are set up to help innovation just in this region. And I can probably name about 3. So the problem usually is that the government sets up something and says, this is now a thing, so I hope somebody finds it. And I hope that they can use it, instead of saying, how can we make sure that everybody receives this? How can we coordinate this? Because that's what a government and a municipality is so good at. Building roads, connecting the different islands of things, putting up systems that can help people like Jenny or me or whoever is trying to get into that system. And have a good user experience in getting into that system, so that you can meet instead of having this, there are things out there, but I don't know what they are, and maybe I can get help, maybe who am I supposed to talk to? All those questions, they're barriers towards innovation and design and architecture. They're barriers towards anything really. So that's my maybe answer to your question, but input is that there needs to be more of a push and clarity and structure and infrastructure for the innovation system to be able to function smoothly.
We could perhaps use some service design.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
But I think that is a very important aspect actually to bring into the municipalities, is to actually work with the design process and methods, which I think, sorry for mentioning Denmark, but they have done it in many municipalities and have had very, very big success in order to work with a method where you open up the question, you analyze, you conclude, you bring it to the next level. And that is a way to do it. And I think that's where design could come into account in this work that you have got to do. But of course it needs a lot of education, and you have to bring that into that as well, in order to understand what can you achieve.
So I hate to say it, but our time is almost out. But if you have something very, very short to add before I wrap up, Ola, you had something on your mind, or Magnus?
This what I was talking about also. We're partly in this system. We're part of this design network. We know each other. We can navigate this. We can ask each other. So we still have some kind of entry point, even though it's hard to get the real one. But just think about the people that are outside the sphere of designers or design educations or architecture. People like immigrants or people that have a hard time, they're also innovators. And there's a huge capability in those people if you can also help them find their way, and not just people that are kind of educated to find their way. So that would be my hope for the future.
Yeah. Ulrika, did you have something?
Yeah, actually, addressing what you're saying, because I was thinking what we lack, and I think the multinational perspective on design processes and design thinking that we're not including as a tool for participation, inclusion. And I'm lacking that actually in design processes and design thinking, that we are not including different nationalities, and it's a quite narrow world actually. And if we take the design thinking as a method for driving force in social change, so that's very important. And
I think that is also really important. I have been in many discussions, many years ago when we talked about, because Sweden and Scandinavia, we are known from Scandinavian design scene and the Swedish design scene, and you talk about what is the kind of the characteristics sometimes, and then you don't think about what is the contemporary design, and that is something that is always changing, and that we always need to be open to invite new disciplines, new cultures, new influences from all around the world, because we are living in a global world.
And in this, where we're right now, we have 180 nationalities we talk about all the time. So how can we reflect that in our city, in the design in the city, and the urban planning, and so forth? So I think it's an important question.
So now I will try to wrap it up, but because this is obviously a discussion and conversation that has just started. I think it will go on, and I want to invite every one of you who are listening to this to take part in this conversation further on. When I think about designers and how we can, because I sometimes feel that as a designer myself as well, that there's a lot of talk about design, but where are the designers? And it need to be the interplay, both from the designers to take place in the conversations, but also to get more invited. And sometimes, I mean, what is it depending on? Is it depending on the designers or the leaders, or is it depending on grassroots? I think we need to create, if we need a cluster of designers to be invited, we just need to invite. That is the first thing. And I think there are so many designers that would like to take a part of these kind of conversations. And talking about what we have been talking about today with interplays and perspectives and momentums within this crossover innovation and design, I think it is really important to think about the design for sustainable development. I mean, sustainable development, no one actually have the right answer, how the future looks like. And for me, design is really a great tool, because it's very much about test, evaluate, learn, test, evaluate, learn. And it's very much about experimentation. It should be playful. I think it's important to have fun. And I think it is also what you're talking about today, that we cannot break it down too much in silos and pillars, but we need also to rethink a little bit the system. And we need to dare, we need to prototype, we need to test, and we need to experiment, and we need to do all of that together. So that is my final words. I don't know if you have anything that you just want to say. Thank you. And this has been a great, great talk. And thank you all. And thank you who have been listening to this.